Sam, they're telling me you rock. When I put you here's the attorney. He just had some underground followers show up. Sheriff's officers. That's an on-air news reporter.
I'm Jennifer Veman. It's spelled V as in Victor, I-E-H-M-A-N.
Beth Reed, Deputy District Attorney, R-E-E-D is my last name.
So I'm going to explain what happened in court today. I know all of you were there, but the acoustics can be very poor in the courtroom. So just to kind of explain a little bit about what happened, we had two motions that we litigated today, obviously very quickly. The first motion was in regards to releasing the affidavit to Patrick Frazee himself. So currently the affidavits, any of the search warrants are sealed in the court file. But as we discussed at the last court date, we released the affidavit to defense counsel for Mr. Frazee, and today we agreed that Mr. Frazee himself could also review that affidavit with his attorney, and his attorney's staff can all work together on that PC affidavit. It will remain sealed until further court order. So that was the first issue that we dealt with here today. The second issue was in regards to the consumptive testing. As we discussed at the last court hearing, whether or not we could proceed forward with testing because the lab had indicated to us that it would be consumptive. That is that there wouldn't be another sample for a defense expert to be able to look at or review. So we've been in communication and contact with the lab. They've indicated and given us a memo to pass along to defense counsel about how their procedures would work and what they need to do. So we have provided that to defense, and we will work out how that consumptive testing will proceed forward in the future. I would imagine that any of that testing we will discuss with the defense counsel in this case, and we will work out the logistics of how we're going to be able to proceed forward with that testing from here on.
Does Patrick Frazee have the rest of the evidence beyond the arrest affidavit? And if not, when will he get it?
So part of the process is what we call discovery. And throughout that process, all of the police reports, everything will be provided to his defense team. That's an ongoing process, and that has already begun. And as that process continues, he will have access to all of the discovery. That's going to be any videos, police reports, pictures, anything of that nature will be provided to the defense counsel, and then through defense counsel, Mr. Frazee will be able to view those items as well.
One of the reasons you wanted to hold on to the affidavit is that you said the investigation was still underway. There were all these leads that needed to be followed.
Yes.
What is the status of the investigation, and if it is still so active, was his arrest premature?
Well, it is an ongoing active investigation. What that really means is that there's many leads that law enforcement will be following up on, many witnesses they will be talking to, and different avenues that they need to pursue. So in terms of releasing the affidavit, the reason why it's remaining sealed is so that law enforcement can contact those witnesses before all of that information is made public. So it will be uncontaminated, if you will, from information that those witnesses would glean from court documents.
So you're confident he was not arrested too soon?
I am confident.
Have you received any evidence from Idaho investigators?
So I can't really speak to any of the investigation at this point. That information is still sealed. So I can't discuss at this time what information or what investigation has been completed through law enforcement.
Is there a woman in Idaho
like
that's
on
cooperating
Monday,
with the
there was a
investigation?
sense of urgency to test that piece of evidence. What changed?
It was a communication with law enforcement and with the lab.
And tell us about that, because I think people heard, oh, there's this piece of evidence that needs to be tested. This must be real important. And now you're saying you might just have to wait and test it later?
This is an ongoing process as we look at multiple items that will be tested. So as we go through items and in communication with law enforcement in the lab, many times the urgent nature of things may change because we may realize that that piece of evidence or that item, either it doesn't have the significance that we once thought it did, or maybe the lab is telling us that it's not going to be an issue. They're going to be able to complete things in a timely manner, regardless of when the consumptive motion is litigated. So many things can go into determining whether or not we need to rush or not. So that's the communications that we have with law enforcement in the lab, was to, in the communications we had with them, we just determined that it didn't need to be completed by January 29th.
Is there a woman in Idaho that's cooperating with the investigation?
So I can't really speak to any of the information that's contained in any of the probable cause affidavits because those remain sealed at this time. Any investigation that's ongoing through law enforcement, I can't comment.
Do you expect other people to be charged?
I can't really comment on that either because this, as I said, is an ongoing criminal investigation and many leads are being pursued by law enforcement.
Is there still an active search for...
this already, but can you explain why the preliminary hearing was postponed, what went on with Mr. Mr. Frazee's decision to waive the 35 days?
So Colorado law requires that a preliminary hearing is held within 35 days unless the defense waives that 35-day requirement. Many times in complex cases, any homicide case, honestly, they will ask to waive that 35 days to give them more time to prepare. That's what happened today. The attorneys, they received the probable cause affidavit after the hearing on Monday, realized the complex nature of the case, and requested more time to be able to complete the preliminary and their piece of that.
Is there still an active search ongoing for Kelsey Berreth's body?
There is still an active ongoing criminal investigation. So many different leads are being pursued by law enforcement in terms of witnesses and evidence, and that will be ongoing for a long time to come.
But specifically for a body, though, is there a search going on?
I believe that law enforcement is following up on any leads that they can at this time in that regard.
Jennifer, can you explain why you're now comfortable with Frazee actually seeing the affidavit himself?
Because in communication with law enforcement, we determined that the leads that they had already pursued between Monday and today, as well as the past couple of weeks, they were confident that it wasn't going to be any issues for Patrick Frazee himself to see the affidavit and be able to communicate with his attorney about that.
Was there concern about, maybe him contacting somebody else?
The concerns in terms of why we asked that Mr. Frazee not be able to see the affidavit in the first place from Monday until today was that we wanted many leads to be followed up on from law enforcement, and once those leads were followed up on, we no longer had the concerns about Mr. Frazee seeing the affidavit.
Are you sensing a timetable on any other arrests?
No.
If there are 3 charges for solicitation to commit murder, why has another person not been charged yet?
So it's an ongoing criminal investigation, so there's many leads that have to be followed up on in terms of evidence collected and witnesses that need to be interviewed.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All. See you soon.